What is a constellation? When you hear the word constellation, you might think of patterns of stars that are painted across the black sky. Some may think of mythical heroes and creatures that have been placed in the sky by ancient gods because of their legendary accomplishments. However, in modern astronomy, a constellation refers to a particular region of the sky in which a group of stars appear to be grouped together. Welcome back to Orbit Insights. I'm Nathan Prather. Today we will be discussing what constellations are, how they got their names, and how to find them. These regions of the sky look more like borderlines of countries instead of ancient beings. However, many people can easily recognize these ancient figures like Orion or Scorpius the Scorpion. Constellations have been reconfigured in some ways over modern times, but in essence, the ancient patterns can still be recognized today. The stories and shapes of constellations all vary depending on who is looking at them. For example, Ursa Major, which contains the asterism called the Big Dipper, has also been known to be called the Great Bear, or perhaps you see this version of the bear, or maybe you think of a plow instead. Now, the Big Dipper is what's called an asterism. It's not a constellation. The constellation is Ursa Major, and I also have another video about what an asterism is, but they are two different things. So remember that when ancient civilizations saw these stars in the sky, they made up stories for them. These stories will differ based on each culture, and so the constellation names will be different as well. For example, the Big Dipper. Now, the Big Dipper is an asterism, right? And it has several different names. So, different constellations, different names. There are also obviously certain constellations that can only be seen in certain hemispheres. The Southern Cross is a good example, so there's also that. So while the story and shape of each constellation will vary depending on each culture and what each individual sees, the Big Dipper, for example, is also known as the Great Wagon, the Plow, or the Saptarishi in India. Most ancient civilizations like the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, and the Native Americans lived in the northern hemisphere, so they were only able to label stars that were visible in northern latitudes. Greco-Egyptian astronomer Ptolemy identified and cataloged more than 1,000 stars in 48 different constellations. Once European explorers started navigating their way through the southern hemisphere in the 16th century, stars in the southern skies began to be identified and cataloged as well. These southern constellations are known as the modern constellations, and they show far less imagination than their northern counterparts. These southern patterns were named after friends, patrons, and inventions of the time. For example, the constellation Antlia represents the air pump. It was named in the 17th century after physicist Robert Boyle, who invented the compressed air pump. The names of the southern constellations seem to have a bit less ingenuity when comparing it to the glorious northern constellations. So the northern constellations are more named after myths and heroes from legends and stuff like that, whereas southern constellations are more modern, really, and are more named after people or inventions. So, to eliminate all this confusion, the International Astronomical Union gathered together in 1929 to solidify the boundaries of the constellations. Today, 88 constellations are universally recognized. Remember, constellations are rectangular slices of the sky that hold stars within that boundary. So, why learn about the sky? So there's a lot of value in learning about the stars. It gives us connection to the past, but it also paves the way for the future as younger generations learn and pass on their knowledge. Learning about what constellations are, where at what time of the year, can also be a great way of navigation, for instance in the outdoors. Hopefully more people will become inspired to venture beyond the Earth and learn more about these vast regions of space that have been viewed for thousands of years. In the past few decades, with the development of advanced technology, humans have increasingly become disconnected from these ancient stories and patterns in the sky. Not to mention light pollution is a big issue as well. For instance, I saw a study, it was from a few years ago, that only 20% of the world's population can see the Milky Way. So basically 80% of the global population has so much light pollution that they can't see awesome things like the Milky Way. So that's definitely very concerning, and hopefully something that we continue to work on and improve and find better lighting solutions that are less invasive to the night sky. So now let's review what we know. So first, constellations are rectangular regions of the sky that contain patterns and shapes of stars. These stars look like they're grouped together, but in reality, there lies too much distance between each individual star. So even when you see it and it looks like they're close together, they're actually light years, maybe even hundreds of light years away. So they're very, very far away. We just can't see that from down on Earth. A total of 88 constellations are recognized in modern times. The folklore and myths surrounding the constellation varies from culture to culture. Constellations are a way to connect globally by sharing stories and myths that have been passed down through generations. So that was everything you need to know about just a general introduction to constellations. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, make sure to check out my other video about what is an asterism, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.